Hello and welcome to my channel, The Mindful Knitter. I am Claire and I am the host of this channel, this podcast, whatever this is. This is the first episode, and I think that it's a podcast. I actually Googled this earlier today to see what is the difference, like what's the definition of a podcast? Like what makes a podcast a podcast? What's the difference between a podcast and like just like a channel? Google wasn't helpful. It just basically a podcast looks like episodes of people talking about things. So for whatever that means. So, based on what I have experienced with watching podcasts on YouTube, I think that this counts as a podcast. So, we're just going to say that it is because there will be episodes and there will be kind of a format that I'll follow. So, in any case, welcome. You can probably tell by the title that this is a primarily knitting channel or podcast. And so I will be covering a lot of knitting things. So just a little bit of a introduction into like why I guess I'm starting the podcast, or background as to why I'm starting this, so a little about me first, I guess. I have been knitting for like 9 or 10 years. But I spent the first like 7 or 8 years of my knitting life basically knitting in a black hole. It was just me. I learned how to knit by going to a yarn shop with my mom when I was in high school or so. And I learned how to knit and purl from the owner of the shop, and my mom got me some yarn and some needles and I think a couple books, and then that was it for the first like 7 years. I didn't have any people in my life who knew how to knit. I don't know if we ever went back to that yarn shop, maybe like once, but I didn't interact with the people there ever again. Really. Nobody else in my life knitted, so I didn't have people to ask questions. I don't really think I used the book, because I think I had 1 or 2 books and I don't think I really used them. I don't know why, but I didn't pick them up other than to look at the pictures and wish I could knit those things. And for whatever reason, it never occurred to me to look on YouTube for tutorials or things. So I just kind of, I guess, was the definition of a self-taught knitter. I learned how to knit and purl by another human being, and then that was it. I just kind of played with my 2 sticks and my yarn and made them do things. Yeah, there were no patterns, there were no tutorials, there was nothing. There was just me playing with yarn on my own. And so fast forward to a year or 2 ago, I got some beautiful Malabrigo yarn. And I wanted to do something with it, but I didn't know exactly what to do because I'd just been doing like garter stitch for 7 years. And so I got on Pinterest and I was looking at knitting things because I had an extensive Pinterest board at this point, but I'd never really learned anything from it. I just looked at pretty pictures of yarn and people's beautiful finished objects. And I came across the herringbone stitch and I was like, this would be perfect for this yarn. So I got on YouTube thinking, I'm sure someone has a tutorial for this. We live in a technological age. Somebody has probably made a tutorial for herringbone stitch, and lo and behold, they had, and it was great, and it was really helpful. And in that process, I came across other tutorials, and then I came across podcasts, and my world was changed. I was suddenly surrounded by people who loved knitting just as much as I did, and got, weirdly excited about yarn and colors and texture. And they liked to smell their yarn like I do. And I learned things. I learned the names of things I've been doing for years that I didn't know that, oh, that this is an actual technique. And it has a name. Uh, and I just felt like I was part of a community finally, even though I didn't really ever talk to any of these people. I didn't feel like I was just alone in my little knitting black hole. um, and I learned so many things, and it gave me courage to try new things. So I got so much from watching tutorials, but also just podcasts. They gave me so much, and I think that they've kind of enriched my life in a pretty tangible way. So I was thinking, since I have gotten so much from all these blessed YouTubers, I would try to put something out there as well. And hopefully it'll be helpful or entertaining or something to someone else. Maybe there's a beginner knitter, or someone who's been knitting on their own that doesn't have a knitting group or any knitting friends or anything like that, who, you know, maybe would feel a little less alone by watching this channel, or anybody's channel. But yeah, feel free to, you know, leave a comment, or, you know, send me a message. Do people message on YouTube? I don't even know. But yeah, I'd love to connect with you guys if that would be something that you'd be interested in doing, because I think community is something that can make this hobby, just like anything else in life, so much richer and wonderful. So that's why I'm starting this podcast. And so a little bit about you know, the content or my plans for the channel. I'm kind of wanting it to be, it's going to be pretty informal. It's going to be kind of like this. I am not particularly technologically advanced, so fancy editing will probably not be a thing. I really appreciate all the people who are talented and patient in those ways. And I love to watch those sorts of podcasts and channels. This won't be one of those. It'll be pretty plain, I suppose, but hopefully the content will be good. So it'll be pretty much this, probably sit and talk. I might do some vlogs later on, because I really love vlogs. I love to see knitters in their environments out in the wild. So maybe some vlogging will happen. But content-wise, it's going to include things like knitting, a lot of yarn, you know, some other things too, maybe like some crochet and some weaving, maybe some like felting, maybe a little painting every once in a while, but basically crafty things and art things, and just a lot of knitting. And then also this mindfulness component. I am, outside of being a knitter, I am also a yoga teacher, and I use a lot of mind, body, and mindfulness within my like work, within my like day job, my career. So mindfulness is something that is a very big part of my life, and it is a part of my knitting and my arts and my crafting as well. So I kind of wanted to share that with some of you guys, I guess all of you guys, but I wanted to share it with the world, because mindfulness is a big part of my life. It's really helpful to me. It means a lot, and yeah. So things to kind of expect for format of episodes. It'll be fairly podcasty in nature as the format, as far as format, I guess. I'm actually influenced pretty strongly by the format that Mina Phillip uses on her podcast, The Knitting Expat. If you haven't seen her podcast, I would definitely recommend checking her out. She is delightful in every kind of way, and she has been truly inspirational to me. I don't know, Mina, if you'll ever see this video, but if you do, watching your channel the last couple of years has just been amazing. So thank you for that. It would be hard to express how much it's influenced me in my knitting. But yeah, thank you for doing that and having that wonderful channel and sharing so much of yourself and your craft and your family with all of us. But anyway, so enough of that. So my my format for my podcast is borrowing a lot from her format because I really, really like the way she does that. It's organized and I love organization. So I'll probably do some sort of intro, and then I'll share finished objects, FOs. They might not always be finished objects from like that week, or I might not podcast every week, but they might be like old finished objects that I like pull back out and share because I'm not a super fast knitter. Some of these people like Mina can like whip out 12 finished objects a week. And I'm not like that. I do not have as nimble of fingers as they do. I knit a bit slower, which is okay. So I will share finished objects every episode though. And then works in progress. So whips, I'll be sharing those as well. And then acquisitions. So any yarny or knitty related things that I have acquired, again, either during the period between one podcast and the next, or like old things that I want to just share with you guys. So I'll share those sorts of things. And then other like, I guess, notions or tools or, yeah, acquisitions. And then there'll be like a little segment on just topics of interest that are knitting related, whether that's podcasts that I've been listening to that I really, really like, or dyers or makers of project bags, or a shop that I found that I loved, or a fun knitting story, just anything knitting related I'll share. And then the next segment will be like a mindfulness segment. And that could be anything from me just sharing like day-to-day mindfulness, either practices or my thoughts about mindfulness at that moment, or something that I had noticed. Or it could be sharing a mindfulness practice like for knitting, like knitting meditations or things like that. Maybe I could, if I find some, I could like link them or like send you in the direction of them. But I also would like to, I guess, like produce some of those. So actually like guide you through like a practice or several. So that's kind of what that segment would look like, is either thoughts on mindfulness, ways that daily kind of life mindfulness has come up, or things to share, or practices or techniques to try, or a specific like yarn related or craft or art related mindfulness technique or practice. So yeah, those things. And then maybe like Q&A, like if people have asked me questions, then I would love to answer those. So feel free to leave any questions down below, and I will try to answer them the best I can. And then I will probably ask you guys a question too, because I'm very curious about your thoughts and feelings and experiences as fellow knitters. I don't have tons of people in my life who knit that I can talk to about these things. So I would love to hear from you guys. So that's kind of the format of things. And so I guess that we will jump right in for today. So let us begin. So finished objects. My first finished object is kind of like a finished object / also a work in progress. But actually, before I do that, other places you can find me. So this is probably good to know. So obviously this YouTube channel. I'm not super social media savvy, but I am trying to get better at that. I do have a Ravelry account, but I'm not super active on it. I'm trying to get better about that. I'm trying to like learn Ravelry better. So I'll provide my Ravelry information once I update it a little bit and have my Ravelry name that I can share with you. But I do have an Instagram account that I have more recently become more active on, particularly for knitting things. I realized that I use Instagram a lot more if it's for yarn. Otherwise, I don't really have any interest in Instagram. But if you want to find me on Instagram and follow me, it is the Mindful Knitter on Instagram. And it is the Mindful Knitter. And I actually wrote this down to be helpful. So it's this, the Mindful Knitter on Instagram. I don't know, is that backwards? It might be backwards, I'm sorry. But you can tell, like, you know, the Mindful Knitter, it's all one word. So that might be helpful, since I don't know how to put words on a screen and be fancy. So finished objects. So I have one sock. I've been on a sock kick, and that might actually be something I do next episode, is I might share all the socks that I've knitted in the past like month or two, because I've been on a huge sock kick, and I have a story behind the socks too, which I'd be happy to share next time. But here is one of my socks. So this is the finished one. I finished it last night, and it's just like a plain vanilla sock. I did a 2x2 rib on the top. I don't know if you can see that. And then I've got the gusset heel flap. And then I did the contrast toe and heel on here. And this yarn is amazingly soft and squishy. It is by Nanette Wake Studios. She has, I don't know if you can see that. She has, I wonder if I do that, will you see it better? I don't know. You might not be able to see that super well. But it's NanetteWakeStudio.com, or she's on Etsy. And she just does beautiful work. All of her colorways I love all of them. I haven't had any bleeding from the dye in her yarns. And this is 8515 superwash merino and nylon. So it's really, really soft and squishy and warm, and it knits up beautifully. Like the stitch definition, I think, is really nice. I don't know if you can see very well on here. Again, I don't know how well that shows up, but the stitch definition is nice. And it's worn really well so far. It's only been a couple months for my oldest pair of socks, but yeah, they've been wearing well. And so this is the first of a half, I guess. So this is a finished object, but I have to make its friend. So we've got this guy. And I think that's just going to be my only finished object for this episode. So works in progress. I'll bring more finished objects next time, but I knew I was going to do all the intro stuff, so I didn't want this to be like super long. Works in progress. So the other half of that pair of socks. And then I've also been working on a shawl. This is a shawl I've been working on for a very long time. There's no pattern. This is an example of me just kind of making things up as I go, which happens a lot. And there's a crochet hook that's to stow away. So I got all these panels of yarn. It was actually a kit, and I think I have another one. Yeah, right here. Yeah, it's a set. This is like the autumnal kind of colors. I can't remember what the colorway was or what the set name was, so I'm sorry about that. But it's by Wonderland Yarns. Yeah, Wonderland Yarns. And this is the same as this, just different colors. So it's a total of 640 yards, 100% superwash merino, fingering weight. Yeah, nice yarn. And I just don't remember which one this was. But it's all those colors, and I didn't really know what to do with this. I started this before I used patterns or used Pinterest or YouTube or anything for inspiration or ideas. So I just kind of knit up each of them into strips, garter stitch. And then so this was an old project that I kind of picked back up just a few days ago. And I'm adding a crochet border. You can see I've added a crochet border along each of these panels. And I am going to stitch them all together, lengthwise, like so. And then I might add a crochet border around the whole thing. I might make some tassels, but it's going to turn into an autumnal shawl. And I think once I block it, it's going to be, I think it's going to be a good like size after I block it, especially once I add the border to it. So this is a work in progress. So I have this beautiful orange color, this kind of almost like a coffee brown kind of color. This kind of like caramel kind of color. And then we have this sort of like burgundy-ish. This is where the crochet hook was stowing away. Because I haven't finished this one yet. And then this very pretty, what would this be? Is this fuchsia? It's slightly different from this one. These look similar, but you can kind of tell, like, this one has a little bit more like purpley pink, and this has more like red. And this is a little like more vibrant, while this is more like muted or earthy. And the yarn that I'm using along the border is, actually have another one. Wow, I'm so prepared and I didn't even know. So this is just Yarn Bee. This is the merino, must be merino Yarn Bee. You can get it at Hobby Lobby in the gold colorway. It's super soft. It's, I think, 50% merino. Where's your information? Show me your secrets. Oh, there it is. So 50% merino wool, 25% acrylic, 25% nylon. I really like this stuff. It's soft. I don't know how it washes up or anything yet because this is my first time using it, but I've liked it. It's easy to work with. I say that. It does split. It actually splits pretty easily. Yeah, it splits pretty easily. I don't know if a beginner would love this, but they might. I've enjoyed it though. It hasn't been like super, it's definitely not the most difficult yarn I've knit with. So would recommend, but this is a work in progress, and hopefully next time I podcast, this will be finished and I can show it to you as a finished object. So what else do I have? I wrote out my like show notes. Mina does this too on the knitting podcast, or the Knitting Expat podcast, and I love that idea and feel like if she can do it and she's amazing, then I'm allowed to do it. So my notes. All right, so acquisitions for today. I recently got these just in the last like week or two, so they are actually recent acquisitions. So the first one, I've never had real project bags and I wanted some. So I got this one. These are both from Etsy. This is from Simply Pretty Bags. Simply Pretty Bags on Etsy. And look how precious this is. Little sheep. I love them. It's a drawstring bag. Delightful. It has these little, like she made them tassel-y at the end, which I like that. I thought that was cute. And then I like how you can fold this down, and it's very cute folded down like this. It has like a kind of almost like newspaper print sort of liner fabric on the inside, and I like that it turns into like a little like yarn bowl or yarn bucket folded down like this. So really pleased with this. This is very cute. I just kind of set it next to me on the couch for days because I just wanted to look at it all of the time. And then my other acquisitions, another yarn bag. This one makes me so happy. It's knitting kittens. Look at them. Look at them. Look. Look at this guy. Look, he's scholarly. And they're knitting and they're so happy. This guy's so happy. This bag brings me a lot of joy. I kind of want to take it with me everywhere. But anyway, this is a Stitchy Girl Studio. So again, I don't know if this is backwards. I should probably figure this out if I'm going to keep doing this podcast stuff. Can you see this? I'm trying to get it to focus. It doesn't really want to focus. But it is the Stitchy Girl Studio. Has detachable little wrist thing. It zips, which is nice. It has a pink liner with a pocket in here. And it's actually a small pocket and a bigger pocket, which I like. She included tea. That was kind of her. Meyer lemon. Citron mayor. I don't know if that's actually how citron mayor. I think so. Anyway, stash, Meyer lemon. It's caffeine free. I'm gonna drink that later. And so here's her Stitchy Girl Studio with coordinating stitch markers. Oh no, I've destroyed everything. One of them came out. Okay, I got it back. Look, no! I have to show you. They're so cute. Okay, maybe if I just look. Look, they coordinate with the bag. I thought this was so thoughtful. This is a production. I cannot. This is a lot. Why is this so difficult? Okay, look. They're so cute. They coordinate. They coordinate with the bag. So thoughtful. Can you see it better that way? So cute. I just thought that was so sweet. So she sent along these 3 stitch markers. And they're just kind of, you know, the basic kind that are kind of like almost like safety pins. You're just gonna like that. So cute. I love that they match. These are gonna live in this bag, I think. And then here's her card. Again, I don't know if this is backwards. If you can't read any of that, maybe you could take a screenshot and flip the screen so you can read it if it is backwards. But she's on Etsy. So again, a Stitchy Girl Studio at Gmail, or on Etsy, and apparently also at Gmail. But yeah, super cute knitting kittens. This just pleases me so greatly. I don't know if I can express how much it pleases me. You can probably tell though, since I'm being a little manic about it, but it's so cute. Okay. So those are recent acquisitions. Again, I'll share more with each episode, but I'm trying not to make this super, super long. And then anything else, knitting interests, something to talk about that's knitting related. I feel like I have mostly covered since I've already talked a bit about knitting stuff and in my intro, and kind of introduced the podcast. I don't know if I will do like a whole lot of knitting story today. Yeah, I probably won't, because I don't want this to be super long. But check out these makers, Nanette Wake Studio for yarn. She does an amazing job. And then the 2 bag maker people that I mentioned, they are awesome. And then I guess, yeah, so I already talked about Mina's podcast, the Knitting Expat, so that could be another knitting related thing, and check her out if you haven't. Oh, and another thing, actually, you know, the vanilla sock pattern that I use for this, another podcaster that I enjoy is the Crazy Sock Lady on YouTube. I used her tutorial video and it was so easy to follow and understand. She did a great tutorial, and it's her vanilla socks on DPNs. I was terrified of DPNs and terrified of knitting socks, actually. I can share this whole story with you next time. Yeah, when I show you all of my socks. But her tutorial was great. Very easy to follow, very easy to understand. clear instructions, the video portion of it while she's, videoing herself doing the things. I thought it was great. So I recommend that tutorial, and probably all of her other tutorials are great too. So yeah, I'll share more I'll share more stories about knitting things next time, or knitting news or bits like that. And then mindfulness segment. So I'm probably just going to define mindfulness for today. Not really like get into any kind of practices or anything, because I kind of just want to like define it for a moment. So because I think like it's such a buzzword and it's such a popular kind of concept right now that there maybe not everybody knows exactly what mindfulness is. And there are a lot of different definitions on it too. So actually, I probably should have done this beforehand, but I'm gonna grab my iPad real quick so that I can look this up for you real quick, because there's an established definition that I already like. And I mean, I could give you the definition that I use all of the time when I'm talking about mindfulness and describing it to people, but this is a really great definition. And it's, the definition that I use basically when I am telling people what mindfulness is. So let's see. This is Jon Kabat-Zinn's definition of mindfulness. I'm waving because there's a fruit fly, not just for random fun. Jon Kabat-Zinn is the founder of mindfulness-based stress reduction, and I like his definition. So his definition of mindfulness is awareness that arises through paying attention on purpose in the present moment, non-judgmentally. And then, sometimes there are things that come from that, like, I'm doing this in the service of self-understanding and wisdom, he says. And then things can kind of grow from mindfulness, like self-compassion or feeling a sense of connection with others or the universe or what have you. So yeah, that's kind of the definition of mindfulness, according to Jon Kabat-Zinn. And, the way that I kind of would say that, the way I describe it, and my definition, my channel or my activities will be kind of like based on our activities, practices, or that sort of thing. I would define mindfulness as paying attention to the present moment on purpose, like intentionally paying attention to the present moment. And that's basically it, like neutrally, or not attaching any kind of judgment to it, not labeling something as being good or bad. It just is. And this could be applied to anything. I could be mindful of my thoughts. I could be mindful of, how my body feels right now. I could be mindful of the weather. I could be mindful about an argument that I had with somebody. I could be mindfully drinking my tea. I could be mindful about literally anything. Mindfulness is just an action that we are doing that engages our brain in kind of a specific way, but we're intentionally doing it. So that is mindfulness. So definition for you there. Again, if you want to know more about mindfulness, you can always Google definition of mindfulness. But that is what most of our practices are going to look like or be based on, is this idea of practicing mindfulness. And so you can do mindfulness practices, like meditations or things like that. Not all meditations are mindfulness meditations, but there are mindfulness meditations. And so you can do practices, but there's also this idea of mindful living, which I think, a lot of us maybe think of mindful living as being very present, but also I think being very intentional. So being present in my life, and really being able to experience fully my whole life, and not just always be stuck in thinking about the future or thinking about the past or being preoccupied, but really being present. Then also being intentional. So making decisions very intentionally based on maybe my deeper values. And maybe being more present in my life through that as well, by things like intentional gratitude or compassion or stuff like that. So mindful living, mindful practices, mindful knitting. So that'll wrap up our mindfulness segment for today. And this is actually going on longer than I expected it to, but it's honestly not super surprising. I can talk for a while if I'm talking about something I'm really interested in. So we'll wrap up with questions and answers. I don't have any questions to answer because this is the first episode and no one's asked me any questions. But I, shared a little bit about my background and how I started knitting with my going to a yarn store with my mom in high school, getting some yarn and needles. The shop lady teaching me how to knit and purl, and then that was it. And then I just garter stitched for 7 years. I did color work and stuff too, but I just kind of, again, I played with yarn. I was like, if, knitting is just a series of loops. If I loop this yarn and this yarn together and then cut it here and then blah, 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 then I can make shapes and color changes and like, huzzah. Yeah, so anyway, I already shared my story of how I started knitting. So my question for you guys is, how did you start knitting? How did you learn how? Did anybody teach you? What got you interested in it? How old were you? Your knitting journey, just, whatever answer you would love to give to that question is, how did you start knitting? And, I guess to answer like why I started knitting, I don't know. I think it's because it's something about yarn. It just always really appealed to me. I loved yarn. I love clothes. I love texture. I love color. I'm very tactile as a person. So I think the idea of like playing with yarn, like literally the idea of playing with yarn just delighted me. And I love knit stitch. I love stockinette stitch. I just, if I had wall art that was just stockinette stitch, I would be pretty pleased. I don't know why, just visually it's very like pleasing to me. So I don't really know what to say other than I just was really interested in knitting and playing with yarn, and I loved the colors and I loved the idea of making something that I could wear, not just something I could put on a wall. I loved the idea of functional art. And so that's why I wanted to try knitting as a teenager. And then I did it, and then I never stopped. So yeah, same question to you. Why did you start knitting? What is your knitting beginning story? So this is probably long enough. So I think I'll end it here. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon. If you have questions for me, or if you just want to say hi, or if you want to connect, please feel free to leave a comment. You can find me on Instagram. Again, I am the Mindful Knitter on Instagram, and it's the.mindfulknitter. I've also got a blog. I have not done very much with my blog. Again, I'm kind of the worst at social media things. But if people show tons of interest over time in me having a blog, then I can try to blog more. But yeah, I don't really know how to I don't know if anybody knows how to end these super well. There are probably YouTubers that end very gracefully. I'll probably figure it out as I go. But yeah, thanks for joining me. I hope to see you guys again soon. Yeah, leave me a comment or questions, and I will see you guys as well. Happy knitting, and I hope that you have a good rest of your day or evening. Bye.